Nice. You're on.
Hello and welcome to A Gypsy's Kiss, the book club. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice. Stick with us a couple of seconds and we will talk about important literature.
Yay.
And you're back.
And we're back and notifications have been sent. So everybody should be joining us in just a moment. So today, housekeeping. Kind of did that backwards. Moderators. So as soon as moderators show up, we'll announce you and make sure that you're cool with being our moderator. Presentation today is going to be on chapter 1 of The Thrill of the Chase. The Thrill of the Chase.
Oh, I didn't change that again. I pulled a slide from the other presentation.
See what happens?
So explain what we're doing.
Okay, so first we'll talk about chapter 1, or what is called important literature in the book The Thrill of the Chase. So if you haven't read that yet, read along with us. And then we're going to have, after the presentation, we're going to take questions or comments. If you have inspiration about the chapter, please share that with us. And if you would start that with AGK, and please limit yourself only to the topic of the chapter titled Important Literature today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is, although I said this, I actually pulled this from one of our other presentations. So it's not an open Q&A today. It is actually what I'd refer to as a closed Q&A relating only to this chapter of Forrest Fenn's book. We'll be back next Tuesday with an open Q&A. So and we'll ignore questions.
Man in the Barn and Jimmy Faster both here.
Hi, gentlemen.
Terrific.
Nice to see you.
And
nice to see you
Chat.
both. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
And Super Chat. So Super Chat is located at the bottom of your screen, most likely. If you scroll all the way down, you should see a little gray happy face and a gray $sign. If you'd like to donate to Super Chat to have your comment or question pop up to the top in a big colorful box, you can just click on that $sign and it will take you through the motions to get your big colorful box with your name and your comment in it. At that point, we'll take special notice of you and your comment.
And because I changed that, I eliminated the special thanks to, I think, didn't I?
No, you didn't have it.
Do I? No, I don't.
You took it out. Oh, you
changed the slide. So our special thanks, in addition to thanking our moderators today, we'd like to thank the following individuals, or pseudonyms for the following individuals. Temp Residence, which is a pseudonym, I assume. Stephen Rempel, Daniel Judy, and John Gold, all of whom contributed to Shelley's certification.
Life coach certification.
Life coach certification coach. So thank you very much. Let me remind you what we're doing. If you go to paypal.me/agypsyskiss and you donate anything to her certification, the fee that she has to pay for her certification for the work that she does on her own channel, I'll match you dollar for dollar with whatever you contribute. So again, go to paypal.me/agypsyskiss if you feel like you want to donate to Shelley's campaign. Lower third.
And also, if you would like to get your own book bag or even anything else with our special logo that says "Look for me in the mountains somewhere north of Santa Fe," with the mountains and a little logo, that's available to you on Zazzle.com/agypsyskiss.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's fun.
Okay, so why don't you talk about weekly schedule, and then let me talk about what we're doing today.
Okay, so of course, most of you know we do appear every Tuesday with our live vlog, and at that time we have a presentation followed by an open Q&A where you can ask any questions or make any type of comments you want, as long as it's about Forrest Fenn and the treasure. And then, actually, we even answer questions about ourselves, so it's very open. Then, of course, on Thursdays at 1 o'clock, we have our book club. And today we're getting into chapter 1 in Important Literature.
Important Literature.
And on Friday at 1 o'clock, Just the Facts. and that's going to be again tomorrow. It's just a short video specifically for the newer searchers
yeah.
that will help them just hone in on the facts.
It's very likely that Just the Facts is not meant for the same people that watch our programming here. It is designed to, we know there's a lot of new searchers coming into the community because of Nightline and some other things. So we want to get them up to speed quickly enough so that they feel like they're part of what's going on.
And something else we are working on right now, putting together, is an FAQ page that we're going to put up on the blog, because there are a lot of questions that we get over and over again that Toby spends a lot of time answering, and so we're going to try to consolidate a little bit, putting up an FAQ page, and that should be coming very shortly.
So let me talk about La Katrina. One of our plans for the book club is that we, Shelley having been a member of a book club where they always serve wine, I having been a member of a book club where they always serve hard liquor.
Oh.
There was a guy.
Are you sure it wasn't a poker club?
At a book club where we just played poker. So, but what I wanted to do was take advantage of the fact that I don't know how much you know about me. I come from a long tradition of artists. My children are fifth generation Spanish colonial artists. One is a specialist in tin. Oh, you know what I can't reach now?
Somebody's saying our audio has clipped. Is it getting any better now at this point?
No.
Are we too loud?
Let me just turn it down.
And Mary says it's dark. Turn the lights up.
You know what, Mary? We're experimenting with this new iPhone as a camera. Hold on, let me see if I'm going to have to do this manually. So hold on just a second.
Sorry about all this
is
AV issues sometimes when we change things out.
Manual exposure. Oh, I can't do it.
We got somebody from New Mexico here called the Straight Mustard. Hello.
How's that, Mary? That's the best I can do right now.
Let us know if we have any further issues, either like you've done, and tell us if you have any audio problems or any visual problems. Let us know. We appreciate that.
And the reason is we're experimenting. We are starting to use the iPhone as a camera, where before we used an iPod because it has a higher resolution, but it's different in terms of setup. So thanks for checking us out on that, and we'll continue to use these microphones as long as we can get the audio right on them. If we're clipping, just let us know, and I'll let it know. And the problem is I can't hear it. I can't hear what we're doing. I can only see it here on a digital physical monitor.
For those of you who tuned in to Toby's test yesterday, you saw him wearing the headset, and of course there's a delay on the headset, so it's very distracting
you can't
to try to think
both
when you're hearing your own voice a minute ago.
So let me go back to the wine. So we planned on having a book club where we were drinking wine during the book club, and we hope that you join us, although it might be earlier in the afternoon for you if you're on the East Coast. But one of the things that Shelley reminded me of last week is that, as I said, I have members of my family that preceded me that were Spanish colonial artists, members of my family after me that are Spanish colonial artists, and that Spanish colonial art thing, just that gene went right through me and into my children. So my son is a Spanish colonial tinsmith. My daughter, Sean, is a Spanish colonial retablo artist. And 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago, she was asked to do some muerto imagery for a line of wines. And they're called the La Katrina wine series. And the motif for this set of wines is the wedding. It's a wedding. And as you can see, this is her muerto imagery that you see behind us. These images with the bicycles are done for the annual Day of the Tread bike race. She has a whole line of these. I mean, she doesn't own the wine, but she does all the bottles. And they've got, so far they've done 3 editions. The first edition had the black top label and the flat bottom. The second edition had the black top label and the punt bottom. And then the third edition has the punt bottom, and they've added this La Katrina to the top foil label. At some point, they were only sold in Albuquerque, and then they moved to Total Wines New Mexico. And as I understand it, you can only buy them at Total Wines stores. And as I understand it, you can buy them in other cities. whenever I buy wines, although you can see a small autograph down here of her name and her husband Daryl's name because he works on them too.
Nice.
I whenever she drops by to visit, I have her autograph all my bottles, and we're going to serve the sangria today. And the other two that we have right now are the Chardonnay, which we'll save for next week because it's not been chilled, and
Red blend.
this is the red blend.
Actually, we should save that for next week
Ash
because next
Wednesday.
week is Ash Wednesday
You
and it
got a
has the
bishop.
bishop on it.
Right. And again, I have her autograph all of these bottles because there people in Albuquerque collect them. So if you stick with us to the end of today's show, I'll have an announcement regarding our bottles here. Okay?
Is the announcement you're going to give me some?
Oh, sorry. This is a sangria. Oh, that's a pretty color, isn't it? How's that?
Okay, everybody's liking the sound now. Oh, except Eric says it's a little low now. And C Monkification says it's a little low. The volume's a little low.
I'm afraid that if I turn it any higher, guys, we're going to start clipping. So I'm going to find the halfway between clipping and not clipping.
And let
I
us
can't
know
tell.
if-
Hold on.
Keep giving
Am
us
I
those
clipping
updates.
now? Okay, that's as loud as I can get without clipping. So you're going to have to turn your volume up.
To not clipping. Woohoo!
And Forrest Fenn. Oh my God, that's a sweet, thick red wine. That is
Sangria.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We should have some fruit in
I
there.
know. We need some fruit
Sorry.
and some ice cubes maybe.
Okay.
All right, let's get busy.
So let's close up housekeeping. When we're done, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. It helps our channel and it helps YouTube think of us better. Subscribe to our channel. You can subscribe by going to gypsieskiss.tv, and the subscription, if you're not already a subscriber, the subscription window will open for you. Check
Click the bell.
Pardon me?
And click the bell.
Oh, and click, yeah, there's a bell in your upper right-hand corner. Click the bell so that you get notifications whenever we go live. Ask, was it Mary Green that was complaining about the exposure?
Uh-huh.
Ask her if it's okay now. Check out our
Just
blog
looks
at gypsieskiss.com.
She said looks good.
Okay. Check out our blog at gypsieskiss.com. That's where we keep our updates. You'll hear my commentary. I'll write blog posts regarding the search. Follow us on Instagram at @a_gypsies_kiss. And the reason that's important to follow us there is that's where we put all our announcements. They go there first regarding it. So if there's going to be a Thursday while we're traveling that we won't do the book show, we'll make that announcement there. So our YouTube channel is at gypsieskiss.tv, and our YouTube live channel is at gypsieskiss.live. Oh, and we have a PayPal account where we happily and gratefully accept donations. Right now and through next Tuesday at 1 p.m., that PayPal account, any donation made to that PayPal account is provided to Shelley so that she can pay for her certification program. And as I've said earlier, if you make a donation, I'll match it dollar for dollar. So, and
Yay.
she's well on her way because, as I said, we've had several people make
Thank
contributions already. PayPal.me /
A gypsy's kiss.
A Gypsy's Kiss. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back to the slide that has what we're doing today.
Okay.
Right here. Okay.
And let's all open up our books to
So you should be on page 8.
page 8, picture of Forrest Fenn, the author signing books at the Turquoise Mine.
Okay. May I?
Yeah.
2 things on that picture. It's one of the few photos in the book that doesn't have a postmark stamp on it. And for those of you that are searching in the Rio Chama area, there is a canyon, a mine canyon up there.
Okay. Is that it?
Clues, hints.
All righty. I'm going to start at page 9, paragraph number 1. I'm going to read it,
So you want to do your stuff first and I'll follow on. How's
and
that?
he's going to follow on. And this is a little fun, and you'll find if you get the book when we finish this whole series, we're going to create a book based on my notes and Toby's notes and any really great things that our viewers have to say.
I will say this about that. Sorry.
Say this about that.
Her notes are amazing. They're just amazing, not because she picks out the things that are really most important in this chapter, but her her analysis.
Backhanded compliment.
Pardon?
That was a backhanded
Was it?
compliment.
What was it?
I don't pick out the most important things.
Oh, no. I meant not that it is not only because she picks out the most important things. It's her analysis, which is based kind of on her area of expertise, which is relationship management. So
But you like it.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Okay. So you'll find that the
And I'm
things-
very envious of it, as usual.
Oh, so I've bolded some things in here, and I'm going to give that emphasis as I read it. So page 9, paragraph 1. I still think about education sometimes, especially now that it's too late to get any. But with all of my days now in the fullness of time, it seems prudent to do a little investigating about higher things. Because I wasn't in college, I didn't get to read any of the great books that were written by really important writers, those guys like Hemingway and Fitzgerald, whom everyone looked up to. Maybe it's a respect thing, like the sheriff who told the outlaw he was going to hang him with a new rope because he respected him so much. And I did get the definition of prudent is acting with or showing care and thought for the future. I actually put into Google the phrase, sheriff who told the outlaw he was going to hang him with a new rope because he respected him so much. And the first article that came up was about Tom Ketchum. Thomas Ketchum was born October 31st, 1863, Halloween, isn't that fun? And he died April 26th, 1901. He was also known as Black Jack. He was a cowboy who later turned to a life of crime and became a member of the Hole in the Wall gang. He was executed by hanging in Clayton, New Mexico in 1901 for attempted train robbery. Nobody in Clayton had any experience in conducting hangings. The rope was too long, and since Ketchum had gained a significant amount of weight during his time in jail, he was decapitated when he dropped through the trap door.
Oh, that would just be not much of a hanging.
Yeah, and then I looked up the word irony because this is a word that popped into my mind when I was reading all of this. Irony is the expression of one's meaning by using language that normally signifies the opposite, typically for humorous or emphatic effect.
Which is what I was doing earlier when I was talking about your...
Oh, I see. Sure. So Fenn seems to indicate with sarcasm, leaning toward irony, in this first paragraph that he was told or made to feel that he was uneducated because he hadn't read the great books he would have had he attended college. What attitude or emotion is conveyed by a sheriff who tells the outlaw he will hang him with a new rope because he respects him so much? The same attitude that allows a convicted criminal to heal from a gunshot wound and amputated arm before executing him, which is what happened with Thomas Ketchum. A bold attempt at irony to open chapter 1.
So a couple of things on this particular paragraph. Number one, Fenn starts out, the title of this is Important Literature. And then he refers to two authors that are considered two of the, if you were to rank authors, and I have the numbers of their books someplace, if you were to rank authors, F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway are probably two, I would say they're two of the top 10 great American writers of the 1900s. The 20th century. And they really taught us, if you read them in high school or you read them in college, they should have taught you not only a lot about storytelling, but how you write a story, because that's what they were masters of. So that he mentions us in here, that he mentions them in here, is important in terms of his perspective, because as you go on later in the chapter, it almost sounds like a level of disrespect in some ways, that they're not that big a deal. Yet, I think that's what Fenn aspires to. I think he aspires to be a great writer, and is in his own way. I don't know that he'll have the visibility necessary to become an F. Scott Fitzgerald or an Ernest Hemingway of the 21st century, but he certainly is the kind of writer that's very readable, and I can respect that in him. Can I add something about Thomas Ketchum?
Yeah.
So for those of you that know we're searching in Cimarron, I followed up on your recommendation. Thomas Ketchum was actually in a shootout with a posse where his brother was wounded,
Right.
up in the Cimarron area between Ute, is it Ute City? Ute, whatever Ute and Cimarron is, in an area called Turkey Canyon. Now, the only thing that's weird about that is Turkey Canyon on the BLM map looks like it's on private property. And it actually has a trail. There's a Turkey Canyon hiking trail that leads to the Philmont, part of the Philmont Ranch location. So I think one of the things that we're going to have to do when we go back to Cimarron in the spring is we're going to have to check out whether or not the Forest Service actually owns part of that Turkey Canyon area, because as I said, on the BLM map, it looks like it's private, like it's land grant money or land grant property. So Thomas Ketchum, interesting character.
Yeah.
Look him up. He's got some history to him. And
I wonder if he's related to Hank Ketchum, Dennis the Menace.
Oh, I didn't even know who Hank Ketchum was. But he comes into play, the whole concept of the outlaw trail comes into play later in the chapter. Okay?
Ute Park is what the straight
Ute
mustard
Park, that's
says.
right. Okay, go.
Okay, moving on to page 9, paragraph 3. I already knew that, yes, that's where I am. I already knew that no salesperson has ever been accused of understatement, so there was no reason for me to listen to her, but I did anyway.
The little girl.
The young woman who was,
They calls her little girl.
well, she can't be a little girl. She wouldn't be working a job at a bookstore and drinking coffee. She must be a petite
woman.
woman anyway. This statement is a Fennism. No salesperson has ever been accused of an understatement. He uses it a lot in interviews. He used it in the Laureen Mills interview. He likes using this language. And
Because he's a sales guy.
so, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because there are a lot of Fennisms in this particular chapter.
Oh, are there?
Yeah. Page 10, paragraph 3.
So
Have
let
I
me
skipped
address
Okay.
a couple of things. Oh, you're going, okay, no, actually, so the only thing I noticed about that chapter was his reference to the little girl. He doesn't, because he's an older gentleman, he doesn't mean it in a condescending way. I think it falls into that category of that someone that young and that helpful and that pretty is, is precious. And that's where the little girl comes from. And it's just an old, I don't think, like I said, I don't think he's trying to be disrespectful. I just think that's what way, and he writes, he's very much in the line of Rudolf Flesch. He writes what he thinks, or he writes what he says, and it comes out very naturally to him. And it's only rarely that an editor would take stuff like that out, because that would be, as you say, a fanism.
Right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, page 10, paragraph 3. I didn't understand how two guys who were big shots could get by with writing such little books. I'd written 8 books, and all of them were much larger and cost a lot more money, and nobody has ever heard of me. Well, Fenn feels that a reputation must be earned, yet points out that he has done more work toward earning fame as an author, but that high regard given to the others that he seeks continues to elude him. But the thing of it is, he's not known for being an author. He's known for being an art gallery owner, for making a lot of money, and for hiding a treasure. Author is just one of the many things that he does, that it doesn't stand out above and beyond the other things.
I think when you're a master, when you're a jack of all trades and a master of none, the likelihood of you becoming recognized as having mastered one of them is very small. I think what he's recognized for is that he's a jack of all trades. He's a great salesman. He's a great gallery owner. He's a passable archaeologist. He's a healthy collector, and he's a pretty damn good author. I mean, he's not going to receive the recognition that, say, an Ernest Hemingway or an F. Scott Fitzgerald or a J.D. Salinger is going to have achieved.
But they were just authors.
That's all they did.
That's all they did.
That's all they did. They focused on that.
Yeah.
Hemingway did other things, hunting and fishing, and
Which he wrote about.
right. And
Yeah.
then he would translate them into the closest Fenn. These are memoirs. Hemingway wrote novels and novellas that were based on his experiences. You know, the book For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is the story about the ambulance driver. What, have I confused those again?
That's
Yeah.
what Fenn says, and I'm going to address that in just a moment.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. For Whom the Bell Tolls is based on his experiences on the Italian front in World War I. So he translated that into what is effectively a love story.
I'm going to address that.
Okay, wait. So, I'm sorry, For Whom the Bell Tolls.
Was the Spanish-American War.
Right. So what the story he tells later, we'll get to that later. Okay.
Yes.
Take back what I just said.
I know, right?
But I do want to point out that in the top 100 books, the Cambridge list of the top 100 books, The Great Gatsby is number 10 all time, and this includes worldwide, not just American books. The Great Gatsby is ranked number 10 all time, and For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is the story about the Spanish Civil War, is ranked number 91 in the top 100. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Page 10.
Oh, wait, I do want to say something.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Go
So at the bottom of that particular paragraph, he says, they were all just holding books and reading for free. To be a little candid, I thought it was rude of them to read with no thought of buying or anything. And you know what? One of the things that I find really despicable is when you go into Borders and you see people just like sitting there doing their homework from books that they pulled off the shelf. That makes me crazy. I probably don't get as crazy as Fenn, but I think it is rude.
Well, they would do it at the library, except the library has all their books stolen, so
True.
sometimes they just can't afford the books.
That's not an excuse. Go.
Borders lets them get away with it then. That's okay, but that's probably why they're going out of business. All right, page 10, paragraph 4. And I hope I'm counting the paragraphs right. Sometimes there's a big block at the top and there's almost no, So paragraph 4. And it says, well, you could almost guess how slow the dumb line was moving. The only register guy in the place was showing more patience than I felt at that moment, while 2 borderline biddies were preoccupied with some kind of breathtaking nonsense at the expense of my time and patience. Finally, they selected a couple of impulse oddments, and the line started moving again. It was hard not to think of what people have to go through when they get old. It doesn't matter that teenagers have to stand in line for hours because they have so much time left. But for old guys who are pretty much covered up with their lives already, it's a different story. Life can be so rude that way. And I pulled this out because we had so much conversation on Tuesday about borderline biddies. So I looked up the word biddy in the dictionary. A woman, especially an elderly one, regarded as annoying or interfering. I say here, Fenn indicates that he has little patience for wasting time standing in a line to buy books he doesn't really want. He specifically said, people were looking at me, so I felt like I had to buy them. But he says he doesn't want them. But he obviously wants them enough to stand in the line that's taking forever to buy them. He sneaks in a play on words with borderline biddies. And I somehow cut off the rest of my notes. But I think he was making a strong attempt at trying to describe it, trying to get a picture painted in people's heads of what he was going through, trying to include them in his lack of patience.
So the whole borderline biddies had come up before in conversation on the various forums. Long time ago. I've seen it around forever. And everybody debates it. Here's my thoughts on borderline biddies. You're in Borders, and you're in a line, and you're a biddy, therefore you're a borderline biddy. That's it. That's all I got on that. Okay, are you going to do anything with what would effectively be the first chapter? I'm sorry, the first paragraph.
Page 11, paragraph 1?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
go
next.
ahead, and then I'll follow up.
Page 11, paragraph 1. When I got around to reading that Bell Tolls book, I thought it was just plain. The story was about this guy who was an ambulance driver in World War I, and he was in love with a nurse. There was lots of killing and mud and bombs and dead horses. I read about a third of that thing and couldn't force myself any longer. I'm going to read to you the summary from Wikipedia of For Whom the Bell Tolls. And you notice the differences between what Fenn says it's about and what Wikipedia says it's about. It tells the story of Robert Jordan, a young American in the International Brigades attached to a Republican guerrilla unit during the Spanish Civil War. As a dynamiter, he is assigned to blow up a bridge during an attack on the city of Segovia.
Who also happens to be a great guitarist. So that was the first big error that I noticed. I don't know if it's an error. I don't know whether it's intentional, whether or not it's a clue. If you play out the Spanish Civil War component or the blowing up of a bridge component, maybe you could pull some things there. What was interesting to me, if you look at For Whom the Bell Tolls on that ranking of the 100 top books, it ranks number 40. And I told you earlier, ranks number 91. And A Farewell to Arms ranks number 40. So there are two very distinct stories. For Whom the Bell Tolls is not the story of a ambulance driver on the Italian front in World War I. That's actually very much a Ernest Hemingway story that he turned into a novel of fiction. For Whom the Bell Tolls, although he did experience some of the Spanish Civil War, it was not as a fighter; it was as a journalist. I've never quite understood why the confusion. I got to believe it is intentional because it's a really hard mistake to make if you read the book. If you read the book and you came to a completely different description, I wouldn't understand why you do that unless there was some intent to it. What the intent was, I haven't quite figured out. But there is a difference between the book that he entitles and the book that he describes. For Whom the Bell Tolls, Spanish Civil War, A Farewell to Arms, ambulance driver on the Italian front in World War I.
And here's kind of an idea to think about is that he wrote to The Thrill of the Chase far apart from the time when he actually read the book, so far apart that he confused the stories.
He may very well have, but and after all, he threw them in the trash, so maybe he just,
and he didn't finish it, and he just kind of, recalled details.
Absorbed it. Mm-hmm. So again, we're dealing in the case of Ernest Hemingway, in the case of F. Scott Fitzgerald, probably two of the most renowned writers of the 20th century, American writers. So certainly they're nothing to be scoffed at. I certainly didn't. Read them in high school, read them again in college. So, As a matter of fact, I'll have to share this with you. The first film I remember, can I tell you this, sir?
Sure.
Did I tell you?
You told me on the phone.
The first film I remember kind of noticing as a child, Spencer Tracy. Mm-hmm. That's who it was. Mm-hmm. The first film I remember noticing as a child was the film from Hemingway's book, The Old Man and the Sea. It starred Spencer Tracy. And I was just fascinated by the story enough so that as a child, I asked my mother to go buy the book for me so I could read the book. And that was my first experience with reading Ernest Hemingway. And I appreciated his style. I appreciated the masculinity of his storytelling. And I appreciated the way he put his paragraphs together, because the paragraphs consisted of sometimes sentences that were 3 words and sometimes sentences that were, 50 or 60 words. He was amazing at that. And the way that he used colloquialisms in the language. He'd use the language, he'd incorporate the language of, in the case of The Old Man of the Sea, Cuba, into his storytelling. So you have to read him to appreciate him, and I think once you do read him, you learn to appreciate him. Okay.
Well, and we talked about that he's a very masculine writer, so it might appeal more to men because they would identify with it. All right, page 11, paragraph 2.
I'm trying to think if I ever had a woman tell me my favorite writer is Ernest Hemingway. I hear a lot of James Joyce, but not
maybe
Ernest.
Mariel Hemingway. Page 11, paragraph 2. Finally, I just tossed those beauties in the trash basket under my desk and looked away. If Robert Redford had ever written anything, he probably could have done it better than the guy who wrote that Gatsby book. We did talk about this in a previous video, but Robert Redford wrote the book, one book. He's attributed many others, but he only wrote forewords for those others. This is his book. He wrote The Outlaw Trail, A Journey Through Time, which Amazon describes as beautifully illustrated account of a 3-week ride financed by National Geographic in 1975 of the Outlaw Trail, a trail from Canada to Mexico where from 1870 to 1910 outlaws ran to escape their past or a price on their head. Aberrations such as this may be intentionally placed to entice us to read Robert Redford's book, provide some insight or hint toward the hole-in-the-wall gang, or to bait us to fall down a rabbit hole.
Oh, good. So a couple of things. The aforementioned Thomas Ketchum was at one point a member of the hole-in-the-wall gang. Secondly, the section, they didn't ride the entire outlaw trail. They rode a section that began at the northeast corner of Wyoming down to Browns Park in Colorado, or was it Utah? Utah. But they do go through Lander, which we thought, and it was one of the things that motivated us to consider our Lander trip. The other thing that I thought was interesting about the book is when Fenn refers to it, he refers to it as if it didn't exist. And we know that Robert Redford was a friend of his. We know that Robert Redford bought paintings from him. And the book that Robert Redford did write, that Fenn claims to be unaware of, was written in 1975. And that was before he was selling paintings to Robert Redford. So it is very likely that Fenn knew of the existence of the book. And probably if you went through his bookshelf, I'd bet dollars to donuts there's an autographed copy of Robert Redford's book on Fenn's shelf. And it's a damned interesting book. I bought it, have read it. I believe there, if you're looking in that Wyoming down through Browns Park area, I believe there's some information in there that might be useful to you. The other thing I liked about that book, and we mentioned in the video, I'll put a link to that video that where we talked about the Robert Redford book. The other thing that I found interesting that was at the subtitle through
A Journey Through Time.
Robert Redford's book is A Journey Through Time. And we think that time is an important part, time and space. Three-dimensional space plus time is an important part of your analysis of the poem. And it's mentioned several times in the chapter labeled important literature. So, in important literature, he doesn't even mention the name of Robert Redford's book. And
as Eric Schmidt points out, Redford also played Gatsby, which we do talk about in that other video.
Right.
And that could be just another thing, like when Fenn is telling you to read the book and go over it and see if anything catches up in your brain. This should absolutely catch up in your brain because he uses Gatsby, Robert Redford, did he write a book? And all of those things should make you say, hey.
And although Gatsby's been made into a film several times, I think that one was made in 1977. It was early on.
It was in the late 70s, early. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was well done. I saw it.
So he had to be aware of all of that when he wrote this chapter.
Absolutely. All right. Page 11, paragraph 4. We're going to get into J.D. Salinger now. Well, as fate would make it happen, the very next morning, all the news was about this guy, J.D. Salinger, who had just died. Everyone on the TV was talking about how he had revolutionized writing novels in his day, and so on. The news said he was very secretive about what he did, and even Diane Sawyer mentioned that he'd written a lot of books and had hidden some in a vault so no one could read them. He seemed like my kind of guy, but I couldn't figure out how he could be such an important writer when I'd never heard of him. So we have J.D. Salinger. Jerome David Salinger was born January 1st, 1919, died January 27th, 2010. He was an American writer known for his widely read novel, The Catcher in the Rye, which details a 16-year-old Holden's experiences in New York City following his expulsion and departure from an elite college prep school. Not only was he expelled from his current school, he had also been expelled from 3 previous schools. The book is more notable for the persona and testimonial voice of its first-person narrator, Holden. He serves as an insightful but unreliable narrator who expounds on the importance
Sound familiar?
who expounds on the importance of loyalty, the phoniness of adulthood, and his own duplicity. In a 1953 interview with a high school newspaper, Salinger admitted that the novel was sort of autobiographical, explaining, "My boyhood was very much the same as that of the boy in the book."
And I think that appealed to Fenn. Now he goes on in a later paragraph and he says he had forgotten some things, right?
Right.
It appealed to him. He connected with it because it was a story of a boyhood, but he missed out on the part like this. I didn't grow up in Manhattan.
Right.
I didn't go to a prep school. But I think he related to the fact that Holden Caulfield tells a story in a very I was going to say colloquial, but I've used that word already once today, in a way that is contemporary to that, not only that period, but his age.
Right.
And I'm sure at some point, if I look through the book, I could find the word Bitties.
And some of the evaluations I scanned through on Catcher in the Rye say that exact same thing, that with just the words he uses to tell a story, he gives you a place and a time and a social class level, and you understand who he is and where he's coming from. And I believe that's something to aspire to, again, because he makes it look so simple. And the great writers always make it look simple.
So for his area, Holden Caulfield was a rebellious middle-class teenager, young man. For his period, Forrest Fenn was a rebellious middle-class teenager for where he lived. That daughter?
Yeah.
On the airplane? Shelley put her daughter on the airplane to Memphis today. Okay, so... Emergency?
It turned into a funeral.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, so he goes through the whole checkout line again, is embarrassed by it. The question I had at the end of Two Trips to Borders is, why didn't he just go to Collected Works? It's closer to him. It requires less traffic because he can literally drive down Old Santa Fe Trail and make a left turn onto towards Don Gasper. So why the Borders thing? Why not go to Collected Works, where when he walked in, they'd say, "Hi, Forrest, what do you need?" And he could sit down, drink a cup of coffee, and they would go, or drink some orange juice, and they would go get the books for him. So there's a reason we're at Borders. I'm not sure what it is, but it's something to think about because he has a more reasonable option than driving to Borders and having these what seem to be embarrassing experiences for him. So,
well, I think there's two possibilities.
Right.
One is he was embarrassed. He didn't want his friends to know because he would see them again.
Oh, the Collected Works
folks. The Collected Works people would see him again in the future and know that this had happened, whereas he didn't plan on seeing those Borders people again. And they were strangers, so he didn't have to, be too embarrassed.
So you think Dorothy would have laughed at him when he asked her?
I doubt it. People who own bookstores love to share their knowledge, love to share literature, love to talk about it. That's why they got into the business. They have a passion for it. The other option is that he used Borders as a visual to give us the idea that this place is full of millennials and hipsters, and he felt uncomfortable there. He was out of place.
Because is he a boomer? Or is he what preceded boomers? I'm a boomer.
Yeah, he's before boomers.
Oh, okay.
Just before, because that boomers was after the war.
All right.
So,
go.
Here we are with page 13, paragraph 1. The more I thought about it, the more I realized the book was about me, and I couldn't believe it. How would anyone imagine a coincidence like that could happen? I always thought I'd write that book myself. I'm sorry, I'm skipping a little bit.
That's okay.
I'd always thought I'd write that book myself. Skip again. But I'd have to tell everything straight because nothing is worse than facts written wrong.
Oh, I want to hear your take on that sentence.
Well, facts written wrong. So I believe when he tells us that, he's giving us these caveats that it's not always true and sometimes I fudge a little, but the facts are in there and they are facts. the things that are in there that are facts are facts.
Mm.
You just have to discern which ones those
Which are the facts and which are embellishments of creativity. So I agree with you on the more I thought about it, I realized the book was about me, and I couldn't believe it. How would anyone imagine a coincidence like that? It's not coincidence. It's your mind saying to you, this guy is writing about you and addressing that. It's like watching a movie, seeing the hero in the movie and saying to yourself, wow, I think this movie is about me. So it's an adaptation, an expectation, not when you start the book, but by the time you finish it, you say, wow, that turned out just kind of how it would have turned out had that been my life. And then you take it and you place it, in my case, in growing up in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and you apply it there. And almost everybody can relate to the J.D. Salinger book if you transform it from Manhattan and prep school to Santa Fe, the west side of Santa Fe, and St. Michael's High School. So I think everybody could do that.
He hoped to do the same with his book, as we talked about last week when he said, look in the mirror, you'll see some of yourself in this, some of yourself in his book. He hoped to do the same as J.D. Salinger by presenting his story and hoping you would relate to things.
Relate to
his
his
life.
story,
Right.
and enough of us have actually. We've all turned ourselves into mini heroes by searching for his treasure in the mountains north of somewhere in the mountains north of Santa Fe.
Yes, somewhere. Oh, Man in the Barn says he was in the greatest generation.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Man in the Barn. That was the World War II.
I didn't know what it was called, but that's right.
Great Depression. I remember it now. Great Depression, World War II, et cetera, et cetera. They survived all that.
Okay, so I'm just going to skip through these next three things. Page 12, paragraph 3, I've never been able to find a place where I couldn't embarrass myself. I call that a Fennism, which informs us of his negative self-talk. Page 13, paragraph 2.
Does he do a lot of that? Do you feel like he does a lot of that?
I think he does in the first part of his book.
Okay.
He's expressing all of that, yeah. Page 13, paragraph 2, making plans is antagonistic to freedom. He says that a lot in interviews. That's a Fennism, which is also an excuse for not getting something done or not being better at something. Page 14, paragraph 2, Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge. And I had a lot of that, imagination, I mean. Besides, nonfiction writers don't have to be right, but 85% of the time. And everyone knows that. How else can a person write a book? I never thought I had to believe everything I said, and if I had to look up a word, I just wouldn't use it. So, of course, imagination is more important than knowledge. We hear that a lot from Fenn. He clings to that because he feels he lacks knowledge, but makes up for it with imagination. And this is followed by another caveat that only 85% of his stories are right or to be believed.
So I think he overplays the imagination is more important than knowledge. Einstein certainly said that, but Einstein was a man of great education. And Fenn, while not necessarily a man of great formal education, certainly is a man of informal education. You could not have written the San Lazaro Pueblo book unless you had learned, as thick as it is, and as detailed as it is, unless you had learned something about it. So I think he underplays about how much he knows versus how great his imagination is. In his case, I think there's a pretty good balance between the two of them. This is the one place, by the way, where he spells knowledge correctly. In the chapter dealing with bells and the jars, he spells it incorrectly without the D. And in the jar that he placed that particular phrase upon, it is misspelled. It is lacking the D. He says he did that intentionally to keep it interesting.
Okay.
I do want to point out where's the point that he says this is I've written 8 books. So
that was back there.
So there's a bit of a conflict because this in the first paragraph he says this is my 9th book. In this in the preface he says this is my 9th book. In the chapter 1, Great Literature, he says he's written 8 books prior to this one. But in the
page 10, paragraph 3.
Yeah. But in the
jacket?
jacket, the rear jacket cover, it says this is Fenn's 8th book. That's the mistake in the book. It is not his 8th book. It is his 9th. He wrote TP Smoke twice.
Somebody else, I believe, wrote the jacket copy, though, right?
Oh, is that why? Yeah,
Do you-
sure. Yeah, it
Because if
doesn't
you
look
read
like
it,
him.
it's third person, and
Yeah.
right.
Okay. We're almost at 1 o'clock, so let's go. You've
I'm
got some good
going.
stuff. I know. I like your stuff.
Okay.
This is gonna. I'm telling you, it's gonna make a great addition to what's
Now,
out
I wanted
there
to bring
already.
this up because you had brought it up before. Page 14, paragraph 2. So when Catcher in the Rye was done, I threw it in the trash where it landed right on top of a Time magazine.
Yeah.
Why does he mention the Time magazine? It seems out of place to bring it up when the whole chapter has been about classic novels.
Yeah, Time magazine is one of those magazines that no longer in existence. If you had debated in high school, you had a suitcase full of Time, Newsweek, U.S. News, and World Report that you used to refer to because they provided a summary of the news on a weekly basis, and you needed to keep up with that in two areas of forensics. One was debate, and the other was extemporaneous speaking. But I thought it was interesting that for the second time in important literature, the word time comes up. And I think that's not just an aberration, I think that's a hint. And the hint is that we have to look at the poem beyond the two-dimensional surface of a map to the four dimensions of space and one dimension of time. So
Okay.
that's
and-
my opinion on that.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and talk about page 15. Are you ready for that?
Go,
Okay, I'm going
because
to.
I think there's only one important sentence in that one.
Let me read that. Not a day passes that I don't question myself about what lies just ahead and whether or not I can make it happen like it's supposed to be. Now, near the end of my 79th year, each day tests me in a different way, and I know that before too long I'll make my last flight to where even memory itself will never have been. Sooner or later, each of us will be nothing but the leftovers of history or an asterisk in a book that was never written. So now I sit here past midnight beside my juniper fire, reflecting back to the year when my awareness took its first few steps. Asterisk. This seems to be the lead in to the book. Why is this page written in large brown font, the same color as the headings, when the rest of the pages are written in a smaller black font? And why is there an asterisk at the end?
As a drop cap, too.
This chapter, Important Literature, seems to be a part of the introduction. It continues to outline how Fenn came to write this book as a completion to the story he related with in Catcher in the Rye. Although it begins with the same format as the following chapters, it's got the drop cap and the line that goes across the top. It is followed by a set-apart reflective prose page, page 15, that turns back time to begin the book of stories chronologically with first grade. Is this an afterthought or a chapter added on as a set of clues, an attempt at irony, or an apology? With the main theme being irony, should we look more closely at this chapter to lead the way to the treasure?
Effing genius.
That's all I've got.
So the only thing after that analysis, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I'm capable of adding anything to that. It's a pretty damn good analysis. So I like that he finishes with an asterisk, because what it ensures is that he won't be an asterisk in a book that was never written. This is both a book that was written and it has his asterisk in it. Have we checked to see how many asterisks are in The Thrill of the Chase? Remind me to do that later. Just see how many times he uses asterisks and where they're used.
Okay.
I'm willing to bet that's the only asterisk in the entire book,
Could be.
because he doesn't do any citations. Okay, we're done.
We're done? Should
Yeah.
we put the chat up?
Yeah, let me just make one quick reminder to everybody before we lose them. Not that we'll lose them, but don't forget to give our video a thumbs up or vlog a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel by using gypsieskiss.tv, and follow us on our blog at gypsieskiss.com, and join us live at gypsieskiss.live. So I've got that whole Gypsy's Kiss thing locked up. Okay, you ready?
I am. Da, da, da. Are you ready?
Boom.
There we go. Sea Monkification is here. Eric Schmidt.
Man in the Barn.
Eric Schmidt is auditing. Okay.
I'm auditing.
Man in the Barn is here. And Dan Von Bank. My first live stream from Minnesota. Minnesota. How was that game? Woohoo! Woohoo, says Jimmy
She
Fast.
does that as if you'd think she was a football fan.
I watched the Super Bowl. That's the one football game I watched.
Okay.
It was fun. Rick Plank from Cincinnati, hello. David Dow, hello. Eric Schmidt, he thought it was dark, so I think we fixed that.
I hope we fixed the whole dark and the audio thing to get everybody through.
The Straight Mustard is here from New Mexico, and he's able to see us live. Thank you.
Oh.
And Lori James, hello. Hola.
Hola.
And Mary Green. Let's see, we'll slide this up. James Cruz, Dale Richards, Man in the Barn, Paul McGinty from the UK. Dale Richards. Wine
Adam
gives me a
Foddy's got
headache
some.
if I don't drink
Adam
enough water.
Foddy's got some competition from the UK.
Yay. Okay, keep up the good work.
Chuck
Denny, Indian Trail, North Carolina. Mary Green, The Straight Mustard, Quest Geek. Hello from Tennessee. My daughter's on her way to Memphis right now.
Tom K, another wine club, brother.
Yes. John York, looks forward to our chats. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. We appreciate it. Kira.
Oh, Eric says it sounds good now, so.
Yeah, Kira. B. Cross, hello.
Bill
from Texas. And let's see, Ute Park was our answer to what you were looking for in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Because he's from New Mexico, so he's going to help us out with our New Mexico geography.
Ketchum, Idaho. I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Ketchum must be a place in Idaho.
Ew.
But it is spelled that way, but I don't know.
Brian thinks that Philmont owns that area, almost sure. There is a hiking trail sign. If you look at it, there's the trail, the dirt road that goes up Turkey Creek Canyon is blocked with a fence and a gate. But there is what I call a fisherman's stair going over the fence, and it is a Forest Service trail that's marked as the Turkey Creek Canyon Trail. So I'm not sure if you can get in there or not. We're going to have to, just because that's our primary search area. More than two. Let's see. Steve Rampel. Steve, thank you for your donation to Sherry's.
Blah, blah, blah. Shelley.
Phyllis's
Enough
program.
wine for you.
Okay. AGK, that is very interesting. 2 hidden references to the Hole in the Wall gang. Yes. One in the reference to Tom Ketchup. Ketchup. Okay, that's it.
Did you eat breakfast
I
today?
did eat breakfast. One to Tom Ketchup, and then
Ketchum.
Gachua, and the other in Robert Redford's book. Yes. So Lori agrees with you. Very low self-esteem. Dale Richards, it's coming. I think further in. Toby, the money they make from them sitting, drinking coffee in a higher GP than the book sales. Wait, say that again. Oh, yeah.
The money they make from them sitting and drinking coffee? They make more from that than they would from books?
Profitability, gross profit.
Mm-hmm.
Probable.
You think?
Yeah. Are we done with important literature? Yes, Dale, we are done with important literature for this week. We'll cover the next chapter next week. And you have the option to ask questions here. AGK, will you include page numbers in the episode titles, please? Thanks. My life now revolves around. I don't know if that's good news or bad. So we had 2 really interesting things happen to us this week. Number one, somebody who lives in Boulder Flats, Wyoming, decided to attack our properties online.
Both of us.
Both of us, yeah. And then the other thing is, I have our address is actually a UPS store. I've used it because of all the traveling that I do, and I've used it for years. And I've always done that whenever I had one on the East Coast, and I had one here when I got here. And somebody showed up there looking for me because when I got there, when I went to pick up my mail the last time, the store manager said there was somebody looking for you, so they showed up at our address. So I asked him, did he look crazy or have a gun? And she said, no, he looked normal. So if you're that person, just send us an email and we'll set up a meeting of some kind. You don't have to go looking for us. Let's see. Will you include page numbers in the episode titles? Yes. Borderline Biddy may be a woman who Forrest may consider is not quite gone to seed yet, middle-aged.
That's kind of what I thought about borderline biddies myself.
All right.
He was just making a descriptive use of the language.
So let's see. Steve Merillat. Okay, cigarettes and wine. Good book equal good time.
This applies. Kira says, according to Dale's site, Fenn says he talks about the bell, for whom the bell tolls. He gives the explanation of the book as World War I rather than the Spanish-American War, and he says he did that on purpose to see if people would notice.
Spanish Civil War.
Spanish Civil War. Sorry, I went way back, didn't I?
No more wine for you either.
It's just drunk history here. So, yes, he did say that, and I have also said that in defense of myself. I trip, and I say, yeah, I meant to do that.
Yeah.
So, who knows?
Okay, scroll down.
Okay.
Outlaw Trail is a good book, yes. Axarbin.
Axarbin?
The Outlaw Trail is a good book with great photos of their trip. I'm going to highly recommend that you don't order it on Amazon. They've raised the price on it. Go to abebooks.com, see if you can get a used copy.
A-B-E, Abe.
Abe, yeah. Abe as in Abe Lincoln.
Liver Eating Johnson.
Yeah, Jeremiah Johnson, the mountain man, that's right.
They made us watch that in high school, I remember.
Virgil, time seems to come up quite often with Fenn. I think time is one of his favorite things to talk about, not only because of his age and because of how close he is to his time ending, but time to him is important because his whole purpose of setting this treasure out is to extend his name further into time so that in some ways he's not forgotten. My opinion is that the longer his treasure remains undiscovered, the more likely it is we're going to remember who Forrest Fenn was. Is.
Dale Richards went to Lander too, visited Atlantic City and South Pass.
Oh, we decided not to. We thought Lander was okay. Lander was a lot of fun.
You were itching to go to Yellowstone, though.
I
Toby wanted to go. Kevin and I had to hold him back.
I was trying to figure out how I could. It was because it's a several-hour drive. It's not a short drive to Yellowstone.
It would have been
at that
all
point.
day just to get there and back.
Yeah.
Well.
Salinger style is colloquial and seems Fenn copy. Yeah. Agreed, Virgil. Lori James,
And I
not a
like
boomer
Dale
in
Richards.
1930. No, Lori. That's who mentioned it earlier. The greatest generation.
Right.
Yeah.
Here. But let's look at Dale Richards. In my opinion, Robert Redford as an actor is less important than his book, because we did talk about he pointed out that Robert Redford was The Great Gatsby, and he also wrote a book. So we had to choose, and he's saying, and I think I agree, that the book is more important than the reference to The Great Gatsby.
In this case, I agree with you. As Shelley said, it's the only book of all the books in which if you were to go to Amazon and search Robert Redford, you're going to find a dozen or so books. All of which, except this one, are his foreword, his preface, maybe some photographs, etc. So we think that in the context of The Thrill of the Chase, it is far more important than his filmography. Although both of us being fans of film, as addition to filmmakers, we think he's got a great filmography as well, just because of the films that he was in.
Sorry, it popped up a little bit because we had a
what you call it?
Yeah, super chat.
Looked up every word of
Hello,
the
Journeyman.
poem. Paul McGinty, AGK, don't have the book, just listening with interest. Well, thank you. That's why we're doing this. Not everybody has purchased the book. We don't intend to read it verbatim because then at some point we'd probably run into copyright issues. But
if you'd like to purchase the book, you can go to www.cwbookstore.com.
And they still sell it for list price for, I think it's $35. And if you go anyplace else, from eBay to Amazon, it's overpriced, but you can still buy it from CW Books, 8th or 9th edition, but it's the same.
Mm-hmm.
AGK, what came first, imagination or knowledge? I would have to assume...
The chicken.
Yeah, I would have to assume, my first reaction to that question is that they are intimately tied to one another, because if you go back to the point at which human beings became self-aware, that is, they realized that they were different from the rest of the objects on the planet, at some point it would be the fact that you would have to imagine what would come next, but you needed the knowledge to actually make that happen. I am of the opinion that imagination and knowledge are equally important, because imagination will take you to a certain point, but without the knowledge necessary to use the tools, for example, you may not be able to achieve what you imagine. So knowledge of the tools and the environment and the culture and the place in which you exist, you have to know that in order to implement achieving your imagination. So I would say imagination probably came first, and then what came second was not knowledge, but the recognition without the acquisition of that, recognition that without the acquisition of knowledge, you couldn't achieve what you imagined.
Exactly. It's like that Robert Kennedy quote, yeah?
Oh boy, you got me. Which one?
Oh, others look at the world and say...
Oh, all right, somebody come up with that quote.
Sorry,
Robert Kennedy. Others look at the world and say...
And I look at it and I say...
What's possible? Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, something, very much something like that.
Find that quote.
Yeah. Came first imagine. Hi, Toby and Shaw. Hi, Heather. Guillen.
Yay.
Susan Heckin
Liable?
He does say during an interview, because he was a writer, he looked up the words like a few. I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
I'm sure he did.
He looks up a lot of words. Oh, what was that? Stephen Marilat, $5. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Do you have a question?
We also have Brian Eagle, who gave us $5 for Super
Austin,
Chat.
Texas, one of my favorite towns. I went to, when I came back from Vietnam, I was assigned to Fort Hood, and I lived in, my family and I lived in Florence, Texas, which is between where Fort Hood lies and Austin. And I decided to try going back to school, so I attended the University of Texas at Austin for a year, getting back into things before I was shipped finally out east and finished up my degree. I finished up my military service and my degree, but I just loved Austin. I just loved it. I learned to dive on the lakes that span the Colorado River down there. And Austin is just a fun, beautiful, friendly town. Very different from the rest of Texas, by the way. I didn't know that he had purposely misspelled borders.
I didn't know either. Did he just leave out the apostrophe? Or was it borderline Bitties?
The borderline Bitties is different. Or does he say borders and then lift off the apostrophe?
Here, I went to borders. Apostrophe
uses
S, but let me see in the part where he went back the next day.
So, Steve, give us an idea of what you're talking about.
Page 12, paragraph 2, at borders the next day, or paragraph 1 if you count the indent. At borders, and he leaves off the apostrophe.
The apostrophe.
Some people
I don't know. I don't know what that is. To me, it would be a typo, but we'll look into it for you, Steve. AGK, hole in the wall, hiding spot. That's what it was. A hidey place for them, right?
Page 76 has another asterisk. So there's.
All right, Jan. What we'll do is when I have a Word doc version of The Thrill of the Chase. I'll go through and do a search and see how many asterisks there are in the book. Dale Richards, AGK, why have you not given the Outlaw Trail more attention in your search? We have, Dale. We actually created a video about it that preceded our trip to Lander, Wyoming, because we thought there was a connection there, as the Outlaw Trail just traveled just north of Lander and went through the Wind River Range, went around the Wind River Range, which is where the Poposia River is. So we gave it a lot of credence. Where it failed for us was the Sinks Canyon. So
here, let me read this. So this is from page 76, and I think I'm able to say, to me, it sounds like he wrote My War for Me before he wrote the chapter we talked about today.
Yeah, because My War for Me was written, he did. Okay. I'm sure of that.
In another generation or so, most of those names will be but an asterisk in the history of a forgotten war. So again, he's talking about himself. He's relating it to those people who are an asterisk, forgotten names up on the wall.
But he uses the word asterisk. It's
memorial.
not it's not the symbol
It's not
asterisk.
a symbol. Mm-hmm.
AGK, asterisk is a wild card on computers, and a joker in a poker hand.
Is a wild card hand.
The first two brown type pages, what do you think? The first two brown tie pages. I don't know. I don't know I can answer that question because I haven't looked at it from that perspective. But with this in hand, I'll look at it from that perspective and come up with a better answer for you. I don't think I could give you a credible answer right now because I just haven't looked at it from that perspective. Dale Richards, AGK, the same trappers that blazed the Santa Fe and Oregon Trail started with the Outlaw Trail, and it was their main route between Taos and the North Rockies where they trapped and had rendezvous year-round. Thank you. I did not know that. Did the cattle drives go through Santa Fe near Cimarron? They went down that side of the Rocky Mountains to Santa Fe because that was a terminus point for the Santa Fe Trail. And it wasn't just the cattlemen, also settlers also used the trail. It was a very busy trail if you've ever read the history of the Santa Fe Trail. There was actually a gentleman, for those of you that are curious about this, there was actually a gentleman whose last name was Brown. I don't remember his first name now. That early in my search process, I started investigating because he was connected to the Santa Fe Trail because he was the first one to have surveyed it. But his last name was Brown. He ended up dying someplace in New Mexico, but it was off to the east someplace in that area that's more flat, high desert than it is mountains. Did we think, Brian?
Yes, and you talked all about Austin.
Oh, okay. AGK, can we ask a question that is in regards to the book, especially if we don't have the ability to usually be here with regular questions?
It's his first time here, so.
Okay, straight mustard. So what we usually do is we stick to answers on the book, but because you can't be here on Tuesday, normally what we request is if you can't ask the question because you can't be there, send us an email, a Gypsy's Kiss at gmail.com.
Or make a comment on that video.
Yeah, or that's right. Or make
we'll
a comment.
See those as well.
Ask your question on the video, in the comments section of this video, and I'll get it answered for you. If you want to keep it private and not public, just send me an email. Let's see. Visual Cane. X-Sarben. Oh, Nebraska spelled backwards.
Oh, interesting.
X-Sarben. X-Sarben. AGK, I like the new wall art. We've had it up for a while, but because my daughter saves a copy of the print that the poster is made from every year, and then she signs it for me. The photographer that you see down here in the corner is actually part of the third edition of the wine bottles, and she did that for me. She did that because I don't do weddings.
So you're dead to me.
Which he is.
Stephen
AGK, the first paragraph in For Whom the Bell Tolls. Oh, sorry.
Because he gave us $5.
Oh,
We
yeah,
have to read his
absolutely.
comment.
Stephen Marilat. Stephen, AGK, I'm thinking about adding a partner for the search. My area is 7,000 by 200. Is that feet, miles, yards, what?
I'm guessing
At
feet.
high elevation, 8,000 feet. Pros and cons, please. In the context of the Borders trips. In the context of the Borders trips, the Borders trips is he didn't know where he was going, and he required help to get to meet his objective. And I think that's the story that, aside from the fact that, as Shelley mentions, it's a little bit, I don't know, whiny, I guess is the best way to describe it. He doesn't sound like a strong, confident man when he walks into Borders. And I think in the context of that, he walks into Borders unconfident. He requires help. He doesn't know where to find his objective. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't know that he was looking for classics. So he went in there not knowing what to expect and hadn't made a very strong plan for it, other than he was looking for a couple of books. So I don't think that if you're approaching the treasure in that manner without any confidence, not knowing what your objectives are, not knowing where you're going, and needing somebody else's help to get there, I don't think the comparison is strong
I
enough.
just came up with something while you were talking about
What's that?
Borders.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about Browns Park being on the border of Utah and Colorado. I don't know. Maybe it's a hint.
Well, we certainly we've mentioned the Outlaw Trail. So who was it? Was it Guillen that asked the question about the starting in one state?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
okay.
this is a help for that clue where the poem starts you in one state, in this case Utah, and takes you across the border in Colorado.
Although we have seen pictures of the area, and we don't think it's fenny because it's very
it's
sparse.
high desert, very
it's
high
sparse.
desert.
Yeah.
Stephen. So let's get. I'm thinking about adding a part of our search
just
area.
read that one.
So I think that's a reasonably sized search area. I think that's a fair place to look for. We always say we're looking for under a square mile. If you're under a square mile, you're starting. We'd like a quarter square mile, or square quarter mile. And elevation 8,000 feet. So it depends. If you're coming from Louisiana, 8,000 feet is going to be pretty high. If you live in Albuquerque at 5,000 feet, then 8,000 feet, while noticeable, is not going to keep you from walking. If you're coming from the flatlands and this is your first time to 8,000 feet, which is a perfectly reasonable place to expect the treasure to be, because at 8,000 feet in New Mexico and to some extent in Colorado is easily drivable up to. I fish at locations at 8,000 feet that I pretty much drive to. So it's all plausible. Could have written by Fenn in his childhood, laying on the forest floor by a stream near the dam at Mill. Yeah, absolutely, and I think he takes a lot of cues, although I don't think he cares to admit that he takes cues from some of those great writers. The great writers wrote in a simple prose that was colloquial in its nature, and that's what Fenn has done here. Rudolph Flesch. If you don't have Rudolph Flesch's book, if you're a writer and you haven't ever seen Rudolph Flesch's book, it's way out of publication, I'm sure. It's called Write What You Say, or Write the Way You Speak, something like that. But you should have that because that's what Fenn has done here. Brian, Santa Fe. What?
Straight mustard is a lady. Sorry about that.
Okay. Sorry, straight mustard. I just got a weird name. Thanks for answering. ATK, which is kind of like
AGK.
us. Yeah. I sometimes feel like Fenn has us all running around solving and presenting new solutions to historical mysteries of the West. I believe you're true in the respect that he's certainly part of what he wanted to do. You've got to remember with his fascinations with archaeology and not paleontology, but what's that? Neolithic, that Neolithic period, the Native American period in the American West, all of those historical things that he was fascinated with. He's fascinated with them, and he wants you to be fascinated with them too. I've heard people say, when Fenn has said you need the book and you need the poem. I think if you use the book and the poem without the expectation that you're going to have to spend your life doing additional research, kind of figuring out what he means and what he wants you to explore, I mean, how else can you take what we think of as a hint in the Outlaw Trail and not go find that book and look at the Outlaw Trail and learn all about Robert Redford and the Outlaw Trail and the outlaws and the hole in the wall, et cetera, et cetera. I think part of his expectation is not just the exploration of the outdoors, but the exploration of the mind, of knowledge, and gaining experience so that you can combine them. One of the most fascinating things that we do when we go out on a recon is find out what else to do, and we've learned a lot of that. As a result, one of my favorite moments in all our searches that we've done together was when we went to Lander and we found out that every Wednesday night they have Indian dances right there at the Pioneer Museum. And it was just fascinating because I don't know how much you know about Indian dancing in New Mexico. It's A, hard to get into, you have to pay a fee, and B, it's hard to video record because they don't let you do it. They're
sacraments, basically.
Yeah, they're religious. There, they have the dances, they announce them, they have a beautiful audience around it. They happen every Wednesday during the summer, and they let you turn on your video camera. And it's just, we have some of those videos that we made. So there's much to be gained just by the process of pursuing this adventure. Dale, where does ATK from? Atchison.
That's Joey's guess.
Tipsy's
Tipsy's
A
kiss.
Tipsy's kiss. Nice, Joey. Thanks. ADK, when I see the book in Fenn's shelf, I think it must be there to help him solve a mystery or to reminisce. I think he does what we all do, and that is you have a set of books that you'd acquired over a lifetime, and that when he wants to spend a special moment with a portion of his life, he pulls out Flywater, or he pulls out an Ernest Hemingway book, if that's what his choice is, or he pulls out Robert. You can look at Robert Redford's book because of the amount of pictures that are in it. They were all taken by National Geographic photographers, by the way. You can take out Flywater, either the 1992 edition or the late 2000s edition, and the photography is amazing, and the conversation is amazing. And if you're a fly fisherman, or fly fisher person, a fly fisher, you have to appreciate some of those areas because they're the same areas that, as a fly fisherman, you appreciate and have a desire to go see one day. H.K. Fenn talks about the size, dimension of the books and borders, as well as the fact that they're paperbacks. Have you taken a good look at the wonderful construction of his memoirs? Yeah, and he mentions, of course, that his books, he's invested a lot of time and some of the profits into producing a book, whether it's his memoirs or, I mean, if you haven't opened up the Secrets of San Lazaro, do yourself a favor and open it, because the binding, and these, I know he also produces special editions with gold leaf on the cover, etc., but the binding and the contents and the sketches inside, the photographs, they're all done, and just the thickness and texture of the paper, they're all done with the highest quality. So when you pick up a copy of an Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea, at Borders, and it's a soft cover paperback 4x6 pocket book, you're going to look at it and you're going to say, well, this can't be anything like my books. Mm-hmm. So,
well, they talk a lot about that in the movie Charles Dickens's A Christmas Story. The movie that came out, they talk about how Charles Dickens had a specific idea of how he wanted the book to look, the kind of paper, the kind of illustrations. He went to a particular illustrator and he said, I have to have you do these. He only had 6 weeks to write this book and to get it illustrated. And he wanted gold leaf on the edging.
And that was before all the modern processes.
Yeah, he wanted very specific, high dollar stuff in that book. And everybody was like, you're crazy. Nobody's going to buy this thing. And it sold out its first printing in a couple of days. So.
Somebody should find out what a first printing of that book is valued at, whether you find it at Sotheby's or not.
And they do continue to keep it up that way. They continue
Straight
Mustard to make the book
is
that
a lady,
way.
not a man.
Yes.
Let's see the time references as well. Hey, Tipsy's kiss. Thanks, Joey.
What about this one? The border of Utah and Colorado. Do the San Juans or the Rockies come that close?
No, they don't. And that was kind of our problem with it. It tends to be in what is referred to as a paleontological basin. It's where the Western Interior Seaway ran. So that's why when we've looked at it, you could tell kind of by the layout from a topographic map. It's very unlike a place where I would expect to find Fenn's treasure. Let's see. Mary, H.E.K. Fenn was buying books in January 2010, and again, he refers to J.D. Salinger's death, which was in January of 2010. Hid the treasure at 79 or 80, 2000, turns 80 in August. Was he working on his book in January of 2010? Yes. And I think that the reason, we don't necessarily agree that he hid the treasure when he was 79 or 80, but he was still working on the book right up until within a week of when the publisher was asking for the galleys in order to start the printing process. So he worked on it. You've got to remember that some of these stories were written way prior to 2010, and he just started collecting them into a book and editing them, and then there were some new ones. But the majority of the writing process for The Thrill of the Chase was done in the period between, I'm going to say, October, November of 2009, and August of 2010 when it was finally published.
If I remember
I'm sorry, when it was-
correctly,
pardon me.
if I remember correctly, there was a lot of talk about, oh, was it raining on January 28th of 2010 in Santa Fe, because he talked about the rain, and people were trying to get very specific about this
Right, the
particular
weather.
thing. And I believe Fenn finally came out and said, you know, I add details sometimes, and maybe they're correct and maybe they're not, but
Yeah.
I want it just to add to the story. But again, maybe that's not what we need to focus on, because it's not going to get us closer to the treasure to know
That's the
was
key.
he in Borders on January 28th, 2010.
Right.
We don't know. It doesn't matter.
We know he was in Borders. We don't know which Borders it was. We don't know what day it was. We just know that he describes an experience. And our personal experience with Fenn's stories is that they tend not only to have slight embellishments, but they tend to be composites of more than one story. So there's no telling how many times he went to Borders to acquire the experience necessary to write this chapter. Paul Ammons. AGK Fenn describes the weather both times when he went to Borders. It was raining for me. It is if you're not a storyteller, you want to get a sense of the
setting.
The setting, yeah. So the setting, and if you look at it, because it's kind of it's a morose, kind of melancholy story of him, and rain adds the fact that it's raining and not sunny in Santa Fe, and weather in January in Santa Fe is weird, because if it's going to be wet, it is more likely going to be snow that will come in the morning and melt by the afternoon. So I lived in Santa Fe for most of my early life, and I don't remember it raining in January. It snowed, and then the sun would come out and everything would melt.
It might sprinkle or sleet, and a mixture of things, but not a rain.
Let's see, the word time. Steve Rimpel. AGK Forrest writes the word time 9 times in the story. Do you think this means anything? Steve, I'm almost afraid to mention this. I constantly say that there is a 3, 6, 9 thing to almost everything that Fenn does. So, and if this wouldn't surprise me. Let's see, AGK, one more. The story of his trips to Borders, in my opinion, is a story of the search. See, I had to go to get to where he was something that while he was there, then it was embarrassed by something. I'm not sure I agree, because to me, the story of, as I said earlier, and I don't want to be repetitive, but the story of him going into Borders, for whatever number of times he did, it certainly was a search, but it was totally uninformed. He kind of had a goal, which was to get books that could help him determine whether or not he's a writer. He went without any apparent knowledge of forethought. He got there and he had to ask help, and then he criticized in a very subtle way. He criticized the help, and then he was embarrassed, and then he got home and discovered he didn't even like the books that he got. So I think if you look at that and you compare the two to that's his experience at Borders and your experience in the search. If that's your experience in the search, stay home, because that's going to be a terrible experience. You have to be informed. You have to know what your objective is. You have to have a good sense of what your plan is after the first 2 clues. And you have to be willing after the first 2 clues, if you realize, whoops, I was wrong. And that's happened to me. Put it away and back down the canyon. Back up the canyon.
We're already down here.
You're welcome, Mary Green. Where?
We were here.
I think of time as an important hint. The title page of the book is missing the printing date. It is in the back of the book instead. Yeah.
Back.
AGK, I've been to Browns Park too. It's unique. I highly recommend a visit to Jarvie Ranch on Utah side if you go and gas up before going in. Yeah, you get a sense of that. It really is kind of away from civilization. Scroll up for me, please. Or is that it?
That's it.
That's it. All
That is
right. Another successful
Book club.
book club.
Woohoo!
So I promised you at the end. So here's what I don't know exactly how to handle this.
You want to flip back to our picture?
Can I?
There we are.
Okay. So as I told you early, these images are done by my daughter. She autographs the bottles for me. We're going to finish this one before the afternoon is out because it's a really good
Then we
sangria.
have a long nap.
So this is sangria. I think there are a dozen different variations, and there are people here in Albuquerque that collect the things. This is the third edition with the La Catrina on the foil and the punt bottom, the place where you can pour it from. So
That's third or second?
this is third.
Oh, okay.
The second edition had the black foil and the punt bottom.
We drank the
first edition.
sangria today.
Yeah. So, so here's what I'll do. Is it worth it to get subscribers?
I don't know how. I mean, I thought we would just offer it for postage.
Okay. So here's what I'll do. Pay attention before anybody does this. So this will cost me probably between packaging and postage $15 to send to you. If you go to a Gypsy's Kiss and you Gypsy's or PayPal.me at Gypsy's Kiss and you contribute $15 plus $10 for Shelley's certification program. So if you go to Gypsy's Kiss, the first person to post $25, I will send you this autographed bottle of this sangria.
It'll be empty, though, because we can't send wine through the mail.
That was painted by my daughter. And we'll continue to do that. How's that? I think that's fair.
Yeah.
The image was painted by my daughter, Sean Wells. She's at seanwells.me, and my son, Jason. Oh.
S-E-A-N, Sean Wells.
So, hang on. I'm going to unplug myself because I want to show you something. I got to turn my sound off so you don't hear me.
All right. So, at this point, we are done with the book club, but for next week, we will be discussing the next chapter, which is first grade, starts on page 16 and continues through the picture, which is 16, 17,
It's a very short chapter.
19, 18 and 19 is just a photograph. So it's basically 1.5 pages. So just first grade, page 16 and 17 mostly. And we'll be discussing that next week.
Okay. So I told you that I have 6 children. My 2 oldest are Spanish, aside from their real lives, are Spanish colonial artists. My son, Jason, is a 5th generation Spanish colonial tinsmith. My great grandfather was the 1st generation. And again, that gene, although my brother did it, he's passed away. And Jason took it up under the tutelage of my mother when he was very, very young. And so he makes all these tin. He makes things from tin. I have a beautiful frame over here. But one of the things that he did for Sean is he made this candelabra so that when people collect the wine bottles, he made this so that they can put candles on them and use them when they have dinner. How cool is that? Smart, a very smart marketing thing. So Sean, you can find at seanwells.me, and she spells her name like a guy, S-E-A-N.
You spelled her name
because
like
I
a guy.
spelled her name like a guy. S-E-A-N. Her married name is Wells, W-E-L-L-S.me, and you can see her work there, and including some of this imagery. You'll see some of that imagery there. And Jason is on Etsy. Jason Eunice, same last name spelling. So if you like to see their work. So first person to get to, what did I say? $25?
25.
And I'll send you this bottle with Sean's. And you know what? How about if Shelley and I autograph it as well?
If you like.
You want to do that?
Sure.
Yeah. Tell us whether you want us to autograph it.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't
that'd
want us.
be better.
Okay. What else?
Tomorrow, tune in at 1 o'clock to see Just the Facts. Next Tuesday,
It's
we'll
a video,
be back.
not a live stream.
Right. It'll be released at 1 o'clock, but you can watch it at any time. Next week, on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, we'll be here again live. And again next Thursday for book club. Anything else?
Keep an eye out for us at gypsyskiss.com.
And once again, visit our PayPal account and
Like this video.
PayPal.me, right?
PayPal.me/gypsyskiss.
Yeah.
To help Shelley with her
With my continuing education. and my
continuing
certification.
education. That ends, by the way, Tuesday at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching today and for contributing to the conversation about the thrill of the chase. And we will see you again next week for A Gypsy's Kiss, the book club. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice. Thanks for watching today, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.